This is Super Yacht News with E. Sisman.
Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. So the update at the start of the video is they're still looking for the last missing person on the boat. As we film this, 5 people have been recovered, which I think we mentioned in the last video. In actual fact, the correction from the last video is we said that the daughter of Mike Lynch, Hannah, had been recovered. In fact, that was actually incorrect. She's actually the last one to be found. Now, from that, I would say that she was probably misidentified. One of our team has been in the unfortunate situation to have found a body in the water when that person worked at sea, and they said that the body was completely inflated. You know, it was very, very distorted from how the person would have looked. So it's easy to misidentify. So we reported what we heard, and obviously that was incorrect. So she is the outstanding person at the moment of the video. Now, we've seen some stuff reported online. The chief executive from the Italian Sea Group, Giovanni Constantino, has given an interview which was covered by the Financial Times. I'm going to read some of it here, and I'm going to address some of it. And then I'm going to read a statement by a yacht designer. I think it's very important. And he talks about the fact that the industry needs to learn from this and make changes. So this is, I'm quoting the Financial Times now. It says he's the chief executive of the Italian Sea Group. If you don't know the Italian Sea Group, they are, amongst other, there are a number of different brands, Italian yacht building brands, under one name, the Italian Sea Group, and they are based in the Marina di Carrara. They're currently upgrading a yacht that is linked to Vladimir Putin, the yacht called Scheherazade. Anyway, they own Perini Navi, the company that built Bayesian, the yacht that sank. He told the Financial Times that Bayesian was designed to be absolutely stable and carry the world's second tallest mast. He said the boat sank because it took on water, Constantino said, suggesting that proper procedures were not followed. He suggested that the large opening just above the waterline on the stern, which pivots down to make a bathing platform and launching point for small boats, the tender garage door or the stern door, may have been open and become flooded, and the same might have been true for another waterline opening on the side, which is the lazarette hatch. I'll show you a photograph of that here. Now, according to the Italian Sea Group, when the boat's keel is raised, we talked about this in previous videos. If you need to see those, go back and watch them about the fact that the keel can be raised and lowered depending on the sea state and depending on what the yacht is doing. They said the Bayesian can withstand an inclination of up to 73 degrees. When the keel is lowered, she can tilt up to 88 degrees in nearly flat position with the mast on the water without capsizing. Now, in last night's video, I'll show it again. We showed you the 45-meter yacht Encore, which was flattened by a similar weather event in New Zealand in 2019, but she righted herself. Now, I've not been able to find any details about Encore's keel, whether they have a lifting keel. From what I can see online, it says that the maximum keel or the maximum draft is about 4.3 meters, which suggests that it doesn't have a lifting keel. We'll go back to the Financial Times. They said, but Constantino does not believe the position of the keel was the issue. He said that once it was clear the boat was taking on water, CCTV footage from the shore showed the lights going out, presumably when water reached the generators or the electrical panels. He said there should have been time to get everyone off the boat and into the life rafts. Now, we assume he's referring to this CCTV footage that we showed you last night. Footage shows the yacht moments before she sank, and he's referring to this footage as proof that the vessel was taking on water. However, this footage is in any way definitive. The vessel fades as the yacht is probably being pushed, as we showed with the AIS data. There's no proof here that the vessel took on water at this point, and in fact, as far as you can see, the navigation light at the top of the mast, the vessel is steady and doesn't list over at all. which is what he was suggesting happened, that the vessel listed took on water, which flooded the engine room and turned off the lights. All we see is a vessel fading away, which is probably being pushed away, but it's not definitive at all. There's no side-to-side movement, so the idea that it's taking on water at this point does not make sense to me. We go back to the Financial Times article. He says, Jesus Christ, the hull is intact. The water came in from hatchways left open. There's no other possible explanation. If maneuvered properly, the boat would have comfortably handled the weather comfortably, he said. So we have a possible explanation for how water may have got in. We spoke to a former engineer who worked on a number of Perini Navi yachts over the years. He wishes to remain anonymous. However, he talked about the lounge doors, big glass lounge doors. I've pointed them out on yacht tours in the past. So there's two huge lounge doors and they're very heavy. And whilst underway, when the boat heeled over to a certain point, the glass door would open itself because of the weight of that door. He said there was a design fault or feature, depending on how you want to look at it, that the vessel had, more than one vessel that he worked on had this issue. And he said that often they would just leave those doors open because the door could get damaged when it slid open on its own. He said the door had to be dogged to prevent it from opening, referring to the pins protruding out of the doors. And some doors, they have pins. Other doors like this, they have an inflatable seal around the edge that holds the door in place. However, when the vessel was at anchor, those doors would be in use by the guests who were on board, obviously. So there would be no reason for that door to be dogged because they'd be walking in and out of them constantly. So if the vessel is at anchor and it suddenly leans over to a very large degree, then it's reasonable to expect that that door, which opened itself on the way, would open itself in that instance. Also, the former engineer told us that the idea that the stern door, which is what Constantine is referring to in the article, and the lazarette hatch would be left open overnight makes no sense. He said the standard operating procedure was that once it was understood that the guest would not be using the tenders to go ashore, the tenders would be lifted back onto the vessel and stowed, and those doors would be closed and secured. Now, I have to say, from my own experience of over 20 years, that's a standard operating procedure on every yacht I've worked on. We stow the tenders once we're finished with them for the day. We close and dog those doors. That is standard operating procedure on every boat I've worked on. All right, so we'll move on. We're going to read a portion of a comment that a chap named Chris Freer, a yacht designer for 50 years, who's designed yachts all over the world, which he posted on a video of Bayesian, which I've probably used as B-roll in this video. I'll post a link to the video and you'll be able to see his comment there. It's a massive comment. We're not reading it all here because it's extremely long. We're going to read a portion of it, which is still quite long and in some points quite technical, but hopefully you can follow along. I will try to explain as best I can. Okay, so this is Chris Freer, yacht designer for 50 years, designing yachts all over the world. He says, this is a 1 in a million tragedy, but we should examine the facts and learn from them. Bayesian boasts the second highest mast in the world at 75 meters on a yacht length of 56 meters. She has a lifting keel to enable her to get into shallow areas. Fully down, it gives a draft of almost 10 meters, 9.83 meters, and raised a draft of 4 meters. A sailing yacht has a keel to counter the heeling movement generated by the power of his sail. So the heeling movement is, this is the sail, the vessel's traveling this way, it leans over, heels. The keel is a counterbalance underwater. I'm sorry to say that size matters to a super yacht owner, and naval architects are seduced into providing solutions. As yacht size increases, the resistance of the hull reduces in proportion, so less sail area is required to adequately power longer yachts. But these floating fashion items are driven by appearance and bragging rights, and you lose prestige if someone has a bigger mast than you. Always the status pecking order questions are how big, how fast, what cost, and is it black? If you design Bayesian with a reasonable sail area and a normal mast, she would not look impressive, which is what super yachts have to be. The stability of a yacht has to be sufficient to counter the power of the rig, the mast and all of its sundries. As the mast height increases, the keels can often become so deep that places of interest are restricted, hence the lifting keel solution. In other words, shallow depths in marinas and ports, you have to lift the keel to be able to get in. Otherwise, if it was a fixed keel, they wouldn't be able to dock. Stability comes from two factors, the hull form and the ballast keel, which acts like a pendulum. As the yacht heels, the volume of the immersed hull section produce a buoyancy force which resists heeling. Initially, the keel gives little force, but as the angle of heel increases, physics makes the keel contribution significant leverage. The greater the keel length, the greater the effect. The combination of the hull buoyancy on the heel side and the keel of the windward side produces the force necessary to keep the yacht from capsizing. If the keel of Bayesian was retracted, it would lose a significant 6 meters of moment arm or leverage from its probable 200 tons of keel bulb. Normally, an ocean yacht will experience a negative point at about 120 degrees of heel. With a lifting keel, this point is greatly reduced, maybe to less than 90, which is what we've referred to earlier from the Italian Sea Group. The problem of large rigs is windage, even with no sails. But this yacht had 3 furling sails forward and a big boom with the weight of a furled mainsail inside, all above the center of gravity, making it top heavy, he's saying. Also, there were a few communications domes on the spreaders, plus there were radar domes as well, radar transceivers. We use a wind pressure coefficient to measure the force of the wind on the rig and sails. Even without sails, the wind pressure coefficient for Bayesian must have been pretty large when hit by a wind force of varying direction with a local velocity way above the norm. Once she was knocked down beyond the stability limit with the keel up, she stood no chance, and laying flat on the water, her deck openings would have allowed a flood of water aboard and she would founder. This would happen in a couple of minutes. The guests would have found themselves totally disoriented in flooding cabins in darkness with the walls, doors and passageways at 90 degrees to the norm. They had practically no chance because it would be completely beyond their experience. In summary, Bayesian, this is still him speaking, by the way. In summary, Bayesian was caught in the wrong place at the wrong time, a freak accident which the designers and crew would have had little chance to predict. If the keel had been down, she would have probably survived the knockdown. Any inquiry, meaning post-accident inquiry, any inquiry must examine the design factors such as the stability vanishing point in the condition she was at the time of the accident, keel up, tank loadings and rig factors for windage and center of gravity, etc., and a calculation of the wind force required to heel the boat to 90 degrees in the condition at the time of the accident. All forms of transport have had these unpredictable one-off events leading to changes of regulations and professional practice. The Titanic, Boeing, 1955 Le Mans, the 1952 Farnborough crash, the 1979 Fastnet, all have made a difference, and these events all came unpredicted and out of the blue, often at a time of complacency. And that's from Chris Freer, Yacht Designer. August 2024. He posted this about 8 hours ago on a YouTube video, which I will post a link to in the description, and you can go and watch that video. It's a full video. They're removing the mast from the boat as it went into refit. The then captain talks about it. One person suggested that mast was very unstable as well. I'm not quite sure of the context of that, so I'm not going to read into it too much, but I'll post a link below. You can go and see that. Also, one other thing before I go, the engineer I spoke to said it was normal practice for the keel to be in the raised position when the boat was at anchor, even if they were at sea, underway, under normal circumstances, without the sails, that the keel would still be raised. There was no reason to drop it. It would just create drag. He said it was only really for use when the sails were in use. So that's something interesting there. One other thing that should be mentioned, this all happened within a few minutes, and in that article, The Italian chap, Constantino, refers to a 16-minute period, saying that that's plenty of time to have done everything. It's very easy to say that when you're sitting in an office. When you're on board the vessel, it's a very different situation. When the vessel started to move around and the crew recognized there was an issue, they would have come out of their cabins, because remember, this is 4 o'clock in the morning, so they're probably all sleeping, most of them. There was one person on watch, most likely. They would have come out and possibly used the escape hatch, which is at the bow of the vessel, to get up onto the deck. Now, whether or not that was closed once they came out, so that would have created another opening at the front of the vessel. If they opened that hatch and left and didn't close it, because you wouldn't, if you think you're going to abandon ship, why would you close the hatch? With the door, the glass door, possibility of opening at the rear, that's 2 watertight compartments that would be flooded. The vessel was designed to stay afloat with 2 compartments flooded. So obviously there's another compartment that's unaccounted for, and I'm sure the investigation will find out exactly which areas were open to the water. All right, guys, I'm going to leave it there. This has probably been quite a long video. I apologize, but I'll leave it there. And yeah, I'll be sure to like the video just to help with the algorithm. And please be sure to comment below. I'm sure you will. All right, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll catch up with you soon. Bye-bye.